This episode is brought to you by Audacia Capital. Audacia Capital is a leading fixed income specialist on the Irish Stock Exchange. Audacia Capital is known for its bold and innovative approach in the corporate bond space. For more information, visit our website at audaciaplc.com.
This is the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show. I'm Glenn Hoddle.
Welcome to the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show. This is episode 37. It's the final podcast of the series, so thanks very much for joining us throughout the season. Today, Glenn looks back to the final day of the Premier League and the battle for the top four positions, looks ahead to the two European finals this week, and further ahead to the Euros and England's chances. Glenn also answers questions from the Evening Standard newspaper for his weekly column, Ask Hoddle. So Glenn, the final day brought a lot of interest this season with the fight for those Champions League positions and all the money that it brings with it as well. It went down to around about the 85th minute in the end.
Yeah, that's right. It was perhaps not as exciting as, some years where there's still the champions to be worked out and all that, but certainly the top four, the relegation, as we know, had been sorted. That was the only exciting bit of the year, the running. So yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? How it unfolded, and in the end, it was Chelsea and Liverpool. Liverpool have done well to get there. I thought, looking back weeks ago, I thought, well, they're going to struggle to get there, and they just about got over the line. And I think the fixtures were kind to them. Gave them really good opportunities, but you still got to go and beat them teams, which earlier in the season they struggled to be honest. So you've got to give them some credit for getting there. And obviously Chelsea sneaking in, and Leicester, that game at Tottenham doing them a favour for Chelsea was quite incredible. I mean, they've done themselves a favour by leapfrogging Arsenal, because that would have been ironic if Arsenal would have ended up ahead of Tottenham with the sort of season that Arsenal so-called are having. So yes, it was an incredible finish, and Leicester are the ones that have dropped out. So they've had a wonderful season still. Europa and winning the FA Cup is still a great season really for Brendan Rodgers and Leicester. But let's face it, they'll be absolutely gutted that they're not in the Champions League. It might work in their favour, actually. Who's to say that they were ready for the Champions League again? I don't know. I think the Europa might be a trophy that they could go all the way and win, where I think the Champions League probably isn't.
I remember right at the beginning of the season, which has been a weird season, obviously it's condensed into so many games in such a short time with COVID restrictions and the Euros coming up as well. I remember I wrote a little piece saying that Southampton, Villa, Everton, who were pretty much at the top in the early season, they won't stay there. And in the end, it's going to be between City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham. And in the end, the top four have the look of a normal season: City, United, Liverpool and Chelsea. But it was far from normal in any way, was it?
No, it wasn't normal at all. You're absolutely spot on. It was, it was a strange season because of strange circumstances. But yes, those four. There's other clubs that would have felt they had a chance of getting in there at the beginning of the season, but those four would be ones that you would have backed it against them getting in, wouldn't you? And they'd have been the ones, the favourites, and it actually ended up like that, as you say. Manchester United in the end were strange. Without Fernandes early in the season, they would have been nowhere near there. So it's been a strange season. But I'll tell you one thing, Chris. I was at Leeds and the crowd were in. Only 8,000. I was at the FA Cup final with 10,000, I think it was. So, wow, it was just the difference when there's a crowd in. Even at that small level, the referees get put under different pressure for decisions. Players get jeered when they go down. They get, when there's a foul or attempted foul, the fans are up wanting a foul. It is a different match. It's a different game, and I think results would have totally been different with crowds in. We'll never know that, but we'll find that out next year. But it does have an impact on the game. One, the atmosphere was much better. It was fantastic, and the buzz. And particularly at Leeds, 16 years they've been waiting to watch their team in the Premier League. and they got the last, 8,000 of them got that last opportunity on the last. It was like the first game of the season. The feeling before the game, and when they come out the tunnel to warm up, was it reminded me of the first game of the season. And the crowd is exciting, and they just want to wait to see their team come out the tunnel. But they hadn't seen them all season in the Premier League, so it's wonderful that we've managed just to get even one game over the line with the crowd coming back.
I'm going to ask you who's your manager of the season. It's one of the questions from the Evening Standard in a moment, but let's just go through some of the teams and we'll say how well they did. West Ham obviously did really well. They were 6th in the end. Arsenal disappointing in 8th. Tottenham disappointing 7th. Leeds fantastic in 9th. Everton faded in the end, didn't they, after a good start? Villa midfield at 11th. Newcastle were 12th in the end. Steve Bruce takes a lot of criticism, doesn't he? Wolves 13th. Palace 14th. Southampton, who were right up there early on, 15th, only just avoiding being down in the relegation mire, just ahead of Brighton, and Burnley survived. Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield United all go down. There were some managers that have done really well, and as I say, we'll ask you that question in a moment or two. But the likes of West Ham, Leeds, Newcastle, they've done better than probably most people would have thought.
Well, I think particularly those two, West Ham and Leeds, it's not only where they've ended up in the league. I mean, West Ham have been fantastic, and Leeds coming up, it's the way they've played. Leeds have got such a refreshing way of playing. They just go for it. They're not too worried about throwing bodies forward. There's one player that sits in the midfield, and that was Phillips. And in the end, everyone else, once they get possession, is make movement off the ball and get in the box, and they flood people into the box incredibly. And that's their tactic, and they can get caught on the break, but their fitness levels are marvellous, and they've been absolutely, they've made the Premier League even better. They really have, and I think next year, I think with once you set a standard, it's always hard to maintain it. It's harder, but I think they'll have one eye gazed on Europe. I think that's where they'll be aiming, and if they get a couple of players in and they strengthen the squad a little bit here and there, they're not far off, a side that could achieve that in the perhaps Europa. I think they've got something to go for. It's incredible, they might have said going into the league, well, we'll be happy if we just stay up by one place, but no, there's some ambition there, and when that Ellen Road crowd are 100% back there, that's going to be a hard place to go and play. It really is. It always has been, and it will be with that team playing as they are. They play with a real refreshing attitude. West Ham have been balanced. There have been games where they've had to defend as a team and be stout and stubborn, and they can achieve that. But then there's games where they've attacked and opened play, and they've got players that can do that as well. And I think David Moyes has done a wonderful job. He really has.
When we spoke to Gavin Peacock a few weeks ago, he was eager to be your number 2 somewhere. So here we go. Because Sheffield United, West Brom, they both need a manager. Crystal Palace, Wolves, also looking for managers as well. There's a few jobs out there at the moment. Nuno leaving, obviously he's a big hot favourite to go to Tottenham, who also need a manager too. He's surprised that we need so many new managers this season.
Well, I think, I'm a bit surprised. I really must say that there's a few there that I thought Roy Hodgson would stay, or that could get changed. I didn't realise that it was going to be like it was, that he was going to come out and say when he said it, you felt they were going to either stay with him or there would be a change and he would go upstairs. That's what I saw. No, but Wolves, for instance, I don't understand if he could. I don't know if he's going to go to Tottenham. I don't think that's on the agenda. I think it could be for personal reasons. I see him maybe going back to Portugal. I don't know. I haven't, not privy, but there's a few jobs up there that Sam I thought would have stayed at West Brom. I thought Sam would have been a good.
Sam's got the hump with the media though, hasn't he? Ever since he lost the England job in the way he did, he's had a bit of a go at the media, and his interview was a bit prickly at the end of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think that there must be something more than that. That's not a reason to not take on a job at Wolves. He wouldn't have done. At West Brom, he wouldn't have done that in the first place. But I think they're not on the same page, obviously, of what Sam wants to get back up again. They're obviously not on the same page. So, he's decided to step down, which is his privilege. But there's a lot of jobs sort of up. Tottenham obviously are the high profile team that are looking for a manager. I'm still scratching my head as a Spurs fan to think that Daniel Levy did it when he did. But that's history now. Mourinho was when he woke up Monday morning of that week, he was preparing his team for a cup final, and suddenly he was sacked. Then I don't get that. I really don't.
As a Spurs fan, as you are obviously, and a legend down at the club, is that an attractive proposition now for an experienced manager to go into Tottenham with a team that's not performed? Harry Kane supposedly wanting to leave. Bale looks like he's going back to Real Madrid. He said yesterday, if he said what he's decided, it will cause chaos, whatever that means. And you would have thought if Kane leaves, that Son's going to be asking for a photocopy of the transfer request so he can sign his name on it as well. Would you want to be a manager at Tottenham? The rebuild, they're not going to spend a lot of money on players, are they?
Well, I think it's at a crossroads. I've said this for some time. I think the squad needs to be looked at. It needed to be looked at 2 or 3 years ago when they got into the Champions League. It still needed then to be. That is when it needed a revamp. It needed to stay on top, and that's where you've got to look at Alex Ferguson over the years. When he was at the beginning, it wasn't all hunky dory, but suddenly, when he built a side, when the side was coming, he would always change. He would always change it at the right time. Every sort of third year, he needed an influx of players. And 9 times out of 10, he got that right. And I think that was where we were at the Champions League. If you going into that game, we weren't playing very well under Pochettino. It was and you could see the signs were there. So that is when I looked at it and thought, no, this isn't all hunky dory, lads. This is where it needed changing. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I've gone on record, lovely training grounds and beautiful stadiums don't win football matches at the end of the day.
Well, I don't understand that logic. I agree with you, because people are saying, anyone that's a great striker is going to want to play. They've got the best training ground, the best stadium. In the end, it's a pitch, isn't it? I mean, they're playing on a pitch. Whether it's the most beautiful surroundings in the Copacabana beach or whatever it is, it's still a pitch.
Yeah, the surroundings don't, the surroundings are helpful to in a working environment. But I've often said it, the stadiums don't win you 3 points on a Saturday. They don't, training grounds are great to prepare. But the crunch is when you go over that white line at 3 o'clock. It used to be 3 o'clock on a Saturday. Now it's whatever time, whatever day.
Whatever that is, yeah.
But that is when, that's when the office starts. That's when you clock in. That's when you actually clock in to work as a footballer, is what you do on the pitch. And unfortunately, Spurs have let that go. And it's going to take a hell of a job there. Getting back to a manager going there, I still think Tottenham's a very, very attractive job for any manager. And any manager normally likes a challenge anyway. You wouldn't be in management if you didn't go for a challenge. And there will be a challenge there at Tottenham. And it will be a case of sitting down and seeing where they're going to go and whether they use the money wisely if Kane goes, or if Daniel's stubborn and says, you've got 3 years left. Who's to say Harry Kane doesn't leave? He might still not leave Tottenham. He wants to. But I don't think he's gone... Personally, I don't think he's... I think he should have sat down and thought about, how he tried to get this move a little bit more.
This episode is brought to you by the Lily White Foundation. We believe sport is fundamental to the development of young people. But sadly, many young people in difficult financial or social circumstances don't get the opportunities most of us take for granted. The Lily White Foundation supports projects that help children and young people take part in sports and activities. For more information, go to lilywhitefoundation.com. You're listening to the Glenn Hoddle Footy Show podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with Glenn, this is how to do it.
To get in touch with Glenn with a question for a future Footy Show podcast, you can email glenn@midnightuk.co.uk or send a tweet to @midnightmix.
Let's get to the Evening Standard question, because they're about Tottenham in particular today. And Peter asks, do you think Daniel Levy will grant Harry Kane his wish this summer?
Well, as I say, I don't think it would be easy for Harry just to up tools and go. I think I understand why he wants to go. I really do. But he's under a contract for 3 more years. That's the stumbling block. And I think that's where, if Daniel Levy sees that it's an opportunity to sell a player for a very, a lot of money, he's not going to go for anything under 100 million, probably way over that. And there'll be clubs out there that are trying to do, they're trying to be throwing players left, right, and centre at Tottenham to do the deal with some cash. Now that isn't always ideal, The one thing they haven't got is a manager to turn to and say, do you fancy that player in our squad? They've offered us 3 players or whatever plus cash. He hasn't got that. He's not in that position at the moment. And if he makes that decision himself, as with no manager there, then that could be disastrous. So it's a real. If it was a game of chess, it's a real difficult position that Daniel Levy and the club find themselves at the moment. I think in the end it'll be for the top price. It'll be for the top dollar if Harry Kane goes.
Chris wants to know who's in a bigger mess. His question, by the way, Tottenham or Arsenal?
Well, I think both clubs are at a crossroads. I wouldn't say a bigger mess, but I think they're at some crossroads that they need to get some work done. I think they're very similar, but I think where Arsenal have slightly got it ahead of Tottenham is that if you remember when Pochettino put a group of young Spurs players in, and they all grew as a team together, and they produced really good performances, and some were from the academy, some like Dele Alli were brought in, but there was a youthfulness about this team that came in. Well, I think Arsenal, that's what Arsenal have got at the moment. They've got 5 or 6 real good youngsters that are getting in the first team and getting first team experience. So I would say in the next 2 or 3 years that they could be the ones that actually, they've got some good players there. Saka, Smith Rowe. You've got Maitland-Niles coming back from a better player from West Brom.
Willock, as we mentioned as well.
Willock coming back from Newcastle. You've got Martinelli. You've got some really good players at the club there that in 2 years' time will just get better and better. Tottenham's got a crop of youngsters that we haven't seen yet. They're nowhere near got that experience. So that's the reason why I think Arsenal are a little shade or 2 ahead of Tottenham in a rebuild. But both clubs are massive clubs, of course, and North London clubs that have been very strong over the years. But who's to say? Why should they actually have the right just to become better again? There's the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United are growing again back to where they were. You've got Leicester, you've got Leeds challenging, you've got Everton, West Ham. You've got all these teams they're not going to lay down and die and let Tottenham and Arsenal steamroll over them, get back to where they were maybe yesteryear. So it's a massive challenge. It really is for both clubs. But I think those youngsters, just, I put them ahead of Tottenham because of that reason.
Okay. Janine wants to know, did Chelsea stand a chance against Manchester City if Kepa is in goal?
Why would Kepa be in goal?
Mendy may be injured. He hurt himself at the Village. Came off at half-time yesterday.
Yeah, but I would imagine that Mendy would have been taking no risks whatsoever. I mean, we don't know, do we? If Kepa has to play, of course there'll be lesser chance.
Well, it won't make that much of a difference, will it? I mean, slight difference perhaps, but
slight difference, but not unless he could have, goalkeepers. He's still a very good goalkeeper. He could have a worldie. Goalies, sometimes have a worldie, and that comes from nowhere. But yes, if you're saying you want your best team out in a Champions League final, of course Mendy would play. But he's still a good goalkeeper, and he's perhaps lost a bit of confidence where he was when he first arrived at Chelsea. But he's capable for one game of having a worldie, and that's what he'll have to do. He'll have to, pull something like that out of the bag, because City will have the majority of the ball and they will create chances.
And Lou wants to know, who is your manager of the season? We spoke about this recently. You said if Pep wins the Champions League, he'd be right up there. David Moyes at West Ham would be right up there too, you'd have to say. Brendan Rodgers, winning the FA Cup and getting so close, he'd be close, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. I think they're the three that I would go for, actually. But Pep, if they win the Champions League, I think the way that they didn't start very well in the beginning of the season, and then they came through like an express train, and the way they've played, some of the football they've played, it's still up for grabs whether they're going to win this Champions League. I mean, that's the thing they want to win. That's the thing that the owners want to certainly win and want to try and dominate for years to come. I don't think it's just about winning it once. I think they want to dominate for a period of time, like Ajax, like Liverpool, like Bayern Munich did. And they've got the capabilities of doing it, the players and the finances and the manager. So that's where I think the pressure is on. Not pressure, but that's where they're setting their sights. I think Pep's played without a centre forward for a long time this year, and they've adapted well, and they've played exceedingly well at times. So yeah, I would put him down as manager of the year if they win the Champions League. But David Moyes has done great. Graham Potter at Brighton could have been very close to being. Bielsa at Leeds has done a fabulous job. You've got to say, to come up and end up playing the style of football that he has done and ended up where he is, in the top half of the league. There's all different ways of judging a manager's work.
It's not all about winning, is it? It's about working with the team you've got, really.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Tuchel comes in halfway through a season and ends up, having a season like he has. It could have been so much better even, but they've got in the top four. They could win the Champions League. And they were runners up in the FA Cup. My word, that would be some feat. So there's all sorts of reasons why. David Moyes is another that should be thought about as well with what he's done at West Ham. So but I would go for Pep Guardiola because of if they win the Champions. I'm not sure it's home and dry. I think Chelsea's going to be interesting. But the key to Chelsea is if Chelsea find it hard when they go 1-0 down.
Yeah.
They've got to go 1-0 up against Man City, and they've done that playing against them recently. And then they've got them where they want them, put it that way. They'll come on to them, and they'll hit them on the break, and they'll hurt them. So, they've got the players to do that. So it's really key. I mean, it's an old adage, isn't it? Oh, the first goal is important. Of course it is. But in this game particularly, I really feel that that would be a major advantage to Chelsea if they score the first goal.
Well, Chelsea don't play with an out-and-out centre-forward like a Giroud or Tammy Abraham type of player. So if they are a goal down, if they put crosses in the box, there's no one there to head them in. They've got to play the 1-2s, and they're also difficult to make it pay off against a good defensive team, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's where City have improved defensively. But the one thing that maybe the difference against City is that they're a side that won't get behind the ball. So if Chelsea find themselves 1-0 down, they find it hard to break a team down, and then the crosses come in, as you say, and there's no one unless Giroud's on the pitch. So, but City, if they're 1-0 up, will keep playing. They'll keep pushing forward. They'll keep people going forward. I can't see them doing anything different. So that will still give Chelsea a chance of breaking with their pace and with the good little inside.
Is that one of the reasons you think Chelsea managed to win the last two games against City? Because when City were a goal down, they came forward. When they were level, they came forward. They gave Chelsea a bit of room, didn't they? And Real Madrid did the same, to be fair.
That's what I was going to say, Chris. Real Madrid was the same. It played into... I mean, Real Madrid, they could have won 6 easily. I covered the game for BT. If they'd have took their chances, it would have been embarrassing for Real Madrid. And I think it's a good thing that they didn't win 5 or 6, because I think their heads would, beating Real Madrid of all clubs in the world, 6-0, you don't do it, do you? And I think 2-0 was perfect for them to keep their feet on the ground and say, look, still a lot of work to be done here. But they can beat City. Of course, if City turn up and play every player for City plays 9 out of 10, then Chelsea or any team in the world is going to be in trouble because they're the best. But, I think Chelsea, it's so important that Chelsea have gone into the Champions League already. They've got that support, that there's no pressure. If they'd have slipped out like they did do in the 80th minute, they were out, weren't they, of the top 4. That would have put even more pressure on this game. So Tuchel and his staff and the club would be absolutely, they'll respond on the back of that in a different way than if they were having to win to get back into the Champions League.
We need to get Jonathan Barnett back on. Say thank you to Gareth for scoring a couple of late goals.
It's
keeping us in there.
stories of football, isn't it? I mean,
Wow.
Arsenal were above Tottenham, and who would have thought that back, weeks and months ago? No one would have ever. I'm sure there was a bit of money between Tottenham and Arsenal fans all around the country, or certainly down the south, that was relying on that sort of scenario. And at 1 minute Arsenal were above, and suddenly Tottenham just turned it round, and then that put Chelsea in the top four. And you cast your mind back, Chelsea were the ones that knocked Tottenham out of it a few years back. So there's a little bit of something going on there. I can't explain what, but
when Chelsea won the Champions League, that also knocked Tottenham out the top four,
Exactly.
didn't it? Because we'd already had the team. So even worse. I can't believe we got away with that.
Yeah, I know. It's I don't know what happened. I don't know what Tottenham have done to deserve all this.
And a quick word: Man United in the Europa League final, they seem to score a lot of goals, don't they? That when you don't expect them to as well.
Well, I think a lot of it. Fernandes early on in the season was dragging United along. If you look at the games and what happened, the effect he had on them, it's quite incredible. Without him doing that. But then he needed support at some stage, and that's where United's season has sort of begun to sort of gradually get better and more consistent. Pogba has had his moments. McTominay in midfield started to play, that role a lot better. I think Cavani's been excellent, and he's kept him for another year. He's been a massive difference. And I think then that sort of experience he's got has helped the likes of Rashford and Greenwood, people like that. They're growing and they're getting better as a player. Being with Cavani, watching him in training, watching his attitude, he's been marvellous, And I think the centre backs of, Harry Maguire's injured at the moment, but he's hardly got injured in his career. Those two, Lindelof, they had a real solid. They had games when they looked a bit vulnerable, but in the end, they were playing together and they become more solid. So that's what was happening. There was a gradual scenario happening. Luke Shaw has had a very good season this year. Very good season. So, the goalkeeper's still up for grabs a little bit. That's a little bit of an open case. But you can see what I'm saying. From where they were a one-man team, they've suddenly, and rightly so, Man United shouldn't be a one-night, of all clubs in the world, you should have a one-man team in many ways at that level. And they've grown, and they've all got better. And then Fernandes is obviously still playing well, but he's not having to play outstanding every week. So he can contribute in a slightly different way in the latter periods of the season. And they've ended up becoming a consistent team.
To get in touch with Glenn with a question for a future Footy Show podcast, you can email Glenn at midnightuk.co.uk or send a tweet to @midnightmix.
Before we let you go, the season's come to an end. 38 games, the FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League. You've talked about it all brilliantly throughout the season, and we hope everyone's enjoyed listening to your Footy Show. The Euro squad's announced this week. Gareth's got some great players to pick and choose from. He's also got a few extra ones because they've allowed about 3 or 4 more. Any surprises you see in the Euro squad for England, or are we pretty much sewn up now?
Well, the problem is, I've been in them shoes myself. You're absolutely got your legs and your fingers crossed for the last 2 or 3 games of a season through injury. And unfortunately, there's a few players there that have got a doubt. Maguire's going to be touch and go for the Europa. You're hoping that he's fit. Obviously I was at Leeds. I saw at the last kick of the game, Calvin Phillips just goes in for a tackle. He might have popped his shoulder. If that's dislocated, he could be out of a squad that I think he would have been in. You've got Henderson, who's on the bench now. Is he going to have enough under his belt? There's a lot of positions there that vital positions, I think, as well. Interestingly, I think they're vital. But Gareth's going to have to wait. There'll be a little bit of a waiting game, and he'll have to sort of maybe give himself a bit more time, if he can, to think about how he's going to play this, because it's a tough one. It's a tough one when you've got that. You've got to give sometimes players extra time, a little bit of extra time, but he's running out of time, unfortunately. So if everyone's fit, then I think he's got a very good and able squad. But I think he's got to look at the cover as well. He'll be looking at really deeply at the cover of people like wow, I don't know. It depends on this. It really is. If Henderson and Phillips are out, for instance, in that deep right, don't forget Rice is back fit, but he hasn't played that much football. He's been out with an injury.
Yeah.
There's some real conundrums there that he's got to try and sort out. But you know, he'll go with what he goes with. I don't see any sort of surprises. I think the lad up front, I think Watkins at Villa looks a really good player and has come on leaps and bounds this year. And I think you know, he's got some choices up the top of the pitch. But obviously, you know, Harry Kane, a lot's going to be on Harry's shoulders. And is his mind going to be right if his future isn't sorted out? That's a big key.
And how well do you think England can do in the Euros? Can the semi-finals sort of minimum for you, or can they go and win it?
Hey, listen, this is almost like a home. It's like a home tournament for us. That's going to give us an advantage. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I think how we go is going to be down to how we defend as a team. I think we've got some firepower going forward. I think we'll cause teams problems going forward. The good thing for Gareth and England at the moment, it's funny, we're going into a Euros where there isn't, France are probably the favourites and a good side, but they're not outstanding. You know, every time you go into Euros or a World Cup, there's a couple of real, you know, teams that are way above, and they're going to be difficult. You fancy England against Portugal or France or Spain at the moment. There's a lot of rebuilds going on. Germany as well. You know, I don't see Germany as somebody who's going to be a major threat or scared. So we're going in as good as, there's probably 8 teams that could win it, and we're one of them. And I think it's how we defend. He's got to make a decision on the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper is going to be key. Whoever goes in there and plays there, and I think he'll go with Pickford, he's got to have a good tournament. And if he has a good tournament and they defend well, then I can see England have got a chance of going all the way and winning it. It's how we defend is the key for me.
Certainly a great tournament to look forward to. Our midfield and attacking force, pretty much the best in Europe. You wouldn't swap any of those midfielders or strikers for anybody else. So maybe De Bruyne obviously would get in any team in the world anyway. But it's a defence, isn't it? That's just got a few holes in it now and again, and just makes a mistake or two.
I think a big decision for Gareth is whether he goes with a 3 at the back or whether he goes with a back 4. There's pluses and negatives on that, but he might just go with 3 to have that little bit of security, to have three defenders in there when the other team's attacking you. It might just give him a bit of comfort, and he's got some options there. He's got some options and different styles of players that he can use in there as well, which is going to be intriguing to see how he uses the players.
Well, we look forward to the Euros. Thanks very much for all your content and all your opinions. For everyone that's emailed in and sent you letters in and gone via the Evening Standard as well over this season. It's been fantastic fun getting Glenn's thoughts. We've even heard a song or two from the maestro as well. How's that going? How's the single going, by the way?
It's going good. I was speaking to the producer yesterday and he's very pleased. There's a few things that we got to do. It's only just come out on Friday. So, yeah. It's had a real good response. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's been good fun doing that. And I've got a few others coming up my sleeve, actually. So, watch this space.
It's like a podcast with Ed Sheeran. This is unbelievable. Someone did send a tweet and saying, who was your favourite artist growing up, and was there a favourite song he had? Would you have a favourite artist?
The Eagles and Hotel California is just a classic.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I've seen the Eagles many times, and they're just outstanding. They're just fantastic. So
their harmonies were brilliant, unbelievable,
incredible harmonies. And Don Henley and Glenn Frey, to me, was similar to Lennon and McCartney. It was like they actually were like one voice when they sung together. It was like listening to McCartney and Lennon. It was almost like one voice. They moulded into one voice. And Glenn Frey and Don Henley is exactly the same. And Glenn Frey's son now is taking his place.
Yes, he has. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
it's brilliant. It's absolutely stunning as well. So yeah, it's the Eagles that. I mean, I love everyone really. I love my music, full stop. But they're the ones that are my very, very, very favourites. Yeah. I'd go anywhere.
And how many games of the Euros will you be watching? You have to say all of them, I suppose.
Well, I'll try and get across all of them. I don't know whether I'll get across. I mean, I'm not quite sure what I'm up to at the moment with the Euros and stuff. So yeah, I've got a few things that might be happening. But yes, but I'll be watching most of the games. That's for sure.
Have a great summer. Enjoy the Euros, and we'll speak to you again soon, no doubt.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks a lot, and to you. Have a good summer.